Ministers, Mayor, Ambassador, Excellencies, friends, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome from my side to COS ICT and to the first panel discussion. My name is Kujtim Dobruan. I'm CEO and founder of Ethics and program director of Access, which is organizing this panel today. Access is the name of a project which supports private sector development and digitalization in Kosovo. It is founded by Austrian Development Cooperation, co-founded by Kosovo government, and implemented by the organization I represent, Ethics. The project Access is supporting the government of Kosovo, among others, in the process of preparing the legal ground for the introduction of electronic signature, authentication, and trust services. And as we heard from the Prime Minister, in addition to that, we are currently transposing the European Union's NIS directive on security, on network, and information systems, which aims at creating an overall higher level of cybersecurity in Kosovo. The focus of Project Access on these topics is just one of the few reasons why today this panel is addressing the topic of cybersecurity. The use of electronic data and online networks is increasing at a very fast pace on a daily basis. Individuals, businesses, and institutions are enjoying the great benefits of digital revolution and transformation. Internet of Things and artificial intelligence are two powerful technologies which are recreating our daily lives. But the downside of this massive digital transformation is the threat to our cybersecurity. Over the past few years, cyber attacks have leaked hundreds of thousands of passwords and sensitive government data. They have stopped the operations of hundreds of businesses and even shut down oil pipelines. Cyber warfare is predicted to be the next frontier of war, where computer viruses and hacking will block critical infrastructure, communication systems, and access to information. For us to benefit from the extraordinary technological developments we have seen in data and online access over the past 2 decades, it is essential, I repeat, for all of us, businesses, institutions, and individuals, to understand the nature of the danger posed by such malicious cyber threats and the practical steps we can all take to mitigate against this. While there is no such thing as 100% security in cyberspace, there are things we all can and must do to enhance our security in this arena. To combat this problem, every nation needs to develop its defensive capabilities at home, coupled with contemporary laws, a modernized education system, and more aggressive law enforcement. But this is a long process. Cybersecurity expertise is expensive and in high demand. Hence, it's challenging to build cybersecurity capacities, be it human or technological. To discuss the challenges and opportunities coming from all these aspects of cybersecurity and digital transformation, I have here with me an esteemed panel of experts. But before we move to the panel, let me welcome Mr. Tony Pietrocola from Agileblu in the United States, who is joining us via Zoom, and kindly ask him for his opening remarks. Tony Pietrocola is president of Agileblu, which is a security operations center as a service platform that's proven to detect cyber threats faster and more accurately across an entire digital infrastructure and cloud. Agileblu provides 24/7 monitoring, detection, and response to identify cyber threats before a breach occurs. Tony got his start as an Apple engineer from 1997 to 2000, and for the next 21 years, he has managed and grown technology companies in the software as a service, fintech, and cybersecurity spaces. He has an excellent track record in developing global growth strategies, high performance and sustainable sales teams, and building successful businesses. He has managed companies from early stage to publicly traded with revenues ranging from pre-revenue to 100 million. Tony serves on the board of EBO Group and Metis Century and is a board member of Northern Ohio InfraGuard Members Alliance. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Finance from the University of Toledo. Tony, good morning. I hope you can hear us. I know it's very early for you, and I very much appreciate your availability. So we are honored to have you here today, and we thank you very much for your time and look forward to hearing your inputs. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. I appreciate you letting me spend a few minutes with you today. Tremendous turnout to your conference, especially in these odd times that we're all living through. So congratulations on that. You know, we have, I live in the United States, we have many conferences going on these days, and attendance isn't always great. So it's nice to see everything that you guys have going on and how important of a topic this is. You know, when you look at cyber right now, and there's nothing that I'm going to say today that's going to be so earth-shattering or eye-opening, but I think some of the basics tend to go a long way. You know, when you look at what's happening globally in the world right now, you know, you can just turn on the news, unfortunately, or read the newspaper or the internet or whatever. I mean, there are tremendous challenges with cybersecurity going on. In as much as I think some of your more strategic people see cyber wars, potential cyber wars, as obviously the new war front, right? Especially as you see old campaigns kind of winding down. But when you think about it from a business perspective, there are major cybersecurity challenges going on anywhere that there's money, right? Because right now, the one thing that the world sees is cyber, ransomware, hacking. It pays, and it pays a lot, right? And the number one reason isn't because people don't care or, you know, it's not top of mind, but there's digital transformation going on in every business. Whether you're a financial institution, healthcare institution, government, utilities, whatever you might be, every business has digital transformation going on because obviously automation makes us more efficient and effective and helps us all, you know, grow our businesses. And when there's digital transformation, there are literally millions of ways for companies to be hacked. And if you think about it, hackers are super smart, they're aggressive, and they're very diligent. In as much as when you look at these hacking gangs, these ransomware gangs, they're businesses. They have HR departments, they have marketing departments. You know, it's a real business in an office setting, right? I mean, these people are very talented at what they do. And when they're also opportunistic. So, you know, just think about the last 18 months with COVID, right? Utilities, logistics. I mean, forget utilities and pipelines that have been hit recently. Look at logistics. Look at shipping containers on the ocean, open ocean right now that are actually being attacked as well. This is very smart, right? Because everyone knows the world is in a kind of fragile place. No matter where you are in the world, it's somewhat fragile. And these ransomware gangs are hitting hard, and it's working and it's paying off for them, right? Healthcare, stealing data and selling it, or disruptions. There's been a couple case studies, one in the United States and one in Germany, where a patient has actually unfortunately passed away because there's been challenges with disruptions in their services, and that's a terrible thing. You know, I think the other area that a lot of folks don't think through is third-party risk. And if you think about third-party risk, it's extraordinarily challenging, right? You could have your cybersecurity extraordinarily well thought out and strategy, you know, have great strategy behind it. But what if your third parties, the people you do business with, the people you count on, the people you share data with or open up systems to, aren't as buttoned up as you are? They don't have that strategic mindset that you do. You know, your cybersecurity can only go as good as the weakest link. So if somebody gets into a third party, that could present a huge challenge for you. And if you look at a lot of the largest incidents recently, even if you go back to the Capital One in the United States a couple years ago, not less than a couple years ago, that was a third party that happened through. So it's not just thinking about your strategies and your ideas, it's also about those, right? Who are you doing business with, and are they as thoughtful as you are? So as you think about this as a business, as a government, and you think about mitigating risks, I think the big answer is anybody really doing enough? I don't care where you live. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care what business you're in. Is anybody really doing enough? Because if you spend billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars globally to digitize all these businesses, wouldn't you theoretically have to spend just about the same amount to create cyber defenses to ensure that that digital investment you just made is protected, and your clients and your employees and everybody is protected? So number one, I think it needs to be made a priority. I think somebody might laugh at that statement, and everybody thinks, well, who doesn't prioritize cyber? A lot of people don't prioritize cyber. Gartner just had a symposium earlier this week, and they listed the top priorities for CIOs and CEOs globally. And cyber was like number 4 or 5, definitely in the top 5. But I don't understand how you could say digitizing your business and automating your business and looking for artificial intelligence to automate that business is number 1, but cybersecurity might be number 4. I would think cybersecurity would need to be 1 before you got to digitally transforming your business. It'd be like putting up a new building, but not having any doors, windows, or locks, right? It kind of just doesn't make a ton of sense. So I think that's big. Number 2, I think about education. Are we educating our people appropriately in all walks of life? And I think that's incredibly important. And I think obsessing with the youthful population, a lot of countries don't take the young folks and I think properly educate them with technology. Just because the young folks know how to use phones and they know how to do TikTok and they know how to do Facebook doesn't mean they truly understand how they're transacting. Doesn't understand how that could lead to a tremendous career in IT. But the whole point is getting their arms around it. And finally, with businesses, and we just did a big symposium yesterday with one of the global leaders in legal for the world. Insurance. Businesses spend all this money with insurance, and they don't know necessarily if that insurance policy is going to help them pay off, right? So, when you think about small countries like Kosovo, where could they pay off? Well, other small countries, not as small as Kosovo, a little bit bigger. But when you think about countries like Israel, and I understand Israel's population is 9 million or so, and you think about Poland, but I think a decade or plus ago, those countries were a little bit smaller and didn't have big IT teams, right? Well, when you look at what Israel's become with cyber, when you look at what Poland became 10, 15 years ago in the IT realm, they've really transformed their economies, right? And I think if you think through grants and education, if you think about these boot camps, 14, 20-week boot camps that can get young people really involved, that could be a tremendous opportunity for a country like Kosovo. And if you think about it, the big public cloud platforms aren't there. AWS, Azure, they're not in country yet. Creating those data centers that are local to your population, your business and government growth, creating boot camps where you can educate the young folks in terms of cybersecurity, and then maybe having a niche like potentially 24/7 SOC analysts in Kosovo that could be a tremendous resource for the world, given your location, given your unit economics and cost drivers. That could be a tremendous center of excellence for a country the size of Kosovo. And hopefully through education, the youthful population understanding how important cybersecurity is, it could be a tremendous way to make cybersecurity a potential huge learning track, not only for the country, but for the young folks and becoming a center of excellence globally. So those are some thoughts I have on cybersecurity, some thoughts I have on on the country of Kosovo, which I have started having some relationships and doing a little bit of business. So, congratulations on this concert. On this conference, and I look forward to hearing your panel. Thanks for letting me kick things off.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you also for the positive note. So please stay tuned. We might have a question or two at the end of the session. Before asking questions to the panelists here, I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves, and also a side note, please keep in mind that we have a very limited time. Xhavit.
Thank you very much. My name is Xhavit Gashi. I'm a retired Brigadier General from Kosovo Security Force. I retired after about 22 years of service, both in military and diplomacy. And why I'm in cyber now, it is because, especially since 2005, all my training and education, especially in the United States, but also in other European countries as well, has been, cybersecurity has been part of my education and training, especially when we considered and studied about the national security as well. And now I joined just a year and a half after my retirement. I joined a great team, a company where I think I can continue to, together with them, to build something better, which is in line with what just Tony said here.
Thank you, Xhavit.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Kujtim. My name is Blerim Rexha. I'm professor at the University of Prishtina, where I teach several courses relating to the data security, information security in bachelor and master level. And recently, I also supervised 2 PhD students on blockchain technology in fintech and electronic voting.
So, hello there. I'm Granit Beka. I'm a Chief Security Officer at BBC with 5 years experience in cybersecurity field. Has been in Hall of Fame of big companies like Apple, Harvard, and other companies that are leading the industry of technology.
Thank you. Thank you to every one of you, and welcome once again to this panel. Xhavit, let me start with you. You come from the security sector. You're, as you said, a retired army general. You've joined the private sector, but you're very well versed in security issues. So let me start by asking you about the Kosovo's critical infrastructure. There is a broad group of threat agents consisting of cyber criminals, hacktivists, and so on. Is Kosovo's critical infrastructure sufficiently protected?
So thank you again for inviting us, and really I'm honored to be in the same panel with distinguished speakers here. To go back to your question, so as we heard also from Prime Minister and all other speakers, like everywhere in the world, the transformation into digitalization is moving very rapidly. Unfortunately, until now in Kosovo, so we were a little back in digitalization. And that's why I can say that the level of threat from cyber criminals is there, but it's not in the level that it is in other developed countries. And we could maybe speak about energy, ICT, water, food, health, financial. So, of course, we have threats in all areas, but with maybe specific focus in specific areas as well. But threats exist there, and Kosovo cannot, like other countries in the world, be enough prepared to face these threats. And if we have in mind, it was very good to listen to Prime Minister Kurti that the government has just processed or passed 2 laws in this regard, and they're expected that this year, finally, they will pass also the law on cybersecurity. Another thing that I would like to see very soon, also the cybersecurity strategy as well. And also we have other difficulties that make us makes Kosovo more difficult to ensure also the protection, which is maybe indirect, but also the fact that we don't have the top-level domain, and all the IPs and internet comes from either from Serbia or Montenegro or Macedonia, Albania, and maybe Professor knows better about that than I do, makes it more difficult, even more difficult for us.
Exactly, and the legal framework was mentioned several times. Blerim, you are supporting the work of Access in these two areas of drafting the legal infrastructure for ADAS, for the electronic signature authentication and trust services, and also the so-called NIST directive on cybersecurity. What is the impact of these two laws in increasing the cybersecurity in Kosovo? How will they impact e-commerce, security of online transaction, and especially the bureaucracy in public institutions?
Thank you, Kujtim. Before answering directly your questions, I think that we should check the background why we are 21 and still we don't apply the digital signature, which are direct outcome of the laws. Just to remind you and all the auditorium here, and maybe all of those are following us on the internet, Kosovo had a law on information services back in 2006. Yes, in 2006, Parliament of Kosovo passed a bill about information services, and this law foresees the electronic signature, digital transaction, etc., which will never apply. Again, after declaring the independence, we have a law information services, which again gives the power to the electronic signature, the electronic transaction, etc., but which never have been applied to Kosovo. And still, I regret that we are doing manually all our daily businesses. Just to show this more briefly to you, maybe Kujtim, to come to the question that you have posed, what we are doing currently, our businesses, we have a computer. By the way, Kosovo is one of the countries in the region with the highest internet penetration. This is due to our very young population that we have. And we perform, or we create this digital content in our computer. We print this document outside the computer. We make them paper, digital, this is our traditional signature, scan the document, bring it to the digital world, and send it by email. Whereas the legal framework has been here since 2006, and the technology has been proven since late 80s or all European countries by 2000. So we are still in 2021 and still thinking. We have now first reading of ADAS law in Kosovo, and hope, Kujtim, that with the help of Access Project, which I'm very proud being part of it, now we are waiting for the second reading of the Parliament, and we will have a compliant ADAS regulation that is in force in European Union from 1st July of 2006. And by this law, we will enhance the electronic transaction, give the power to the digital signature, to electronic seals, etc. You can imagine every one of us dealing every day with this, by the way, 45 minutes, Kujtim. And every day we are dealing with documents, with paperwork, etc., which we need to go to any public institution to get these documents, whereas the legal framework in Kosovo enables this. And I really hope with the help of Access Project, we will have very soon, which I mean very soon, by end of this month or in the end of November, that the Parliament will pass the second reading of the ADAS law, and we will have the ADAS law. And the second law, which is in preparation, as Xhavit mentioned before, is derived or based on the National Cybersecurity Strategy from 2015-2018. And the second one is, as I know, is on preparing. And this is the NIST directive. And the NIST directive now foresees all the stakeholders, all these services that needs to be identified and protected in the cyber world. By the way, the cyber world is the largest, the internet, the cyber world is the largest project that mankind ever built. We have billions of connected devices, billions of people connecting, and the tendency is to connect everyone with everything. So the tendency is growing, and the internet doesn't show any signs of saturation. So the concerns will be here, they will be greater, and we need to to take action in responsible way. So I really hope with these two laws, Kosovo will start using it and enforcing it to use. So that I see the role of the government, and I know that we have a representative of the government here, that they will enforce not to have this law as we had the previous laws just in paper. We need to enforce it in order that we can benefit from the digital services. Otherwise, doesn't make any sense having everything digitalized and going asking for the paper form of documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Blerim. Thank you. Let me move over to a slightly different topic. I think digitalization is unthinkable without the private sector and the SMEs. With the exponential growth in data and in the digital transformation, which is, by the way, an imperative for private sector competitiveness, businesses are becoming a new role. They are becoming data stewards. So, Granit, maybe a question for you. Do these data stewards, these businesses, understand the scope and scale of their responsibility, and are they well prepared to respond to cyber threats, especially in the Kosovo context?
So thank you. I'm going to keep it short and simple. Basically, digitalization has achieved a great milestone, and Kosovo is every day moving closer to that milestone. And the private sector and the data being used in Kosovo are classified as confidential and every stuff going through that. But I don't think the private sector and the public sector are known to remediate the cyber threats. So maybe if we will have a potential cyber threat or cyber attack, we will move on to get some technicians and other stuff from all over the place to take that and remediate the cyber attack.
Thank you, Granit. Maybe one more question regarding the protection. What are the minimum steps for a private business, for an SME, but also for us as individuals, necessary to undertake to protect themselves and to mitigate those cyber risks?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, to solve a problem, we need to identify the problem. So basically, we need to do some penetration testing, to do some auditing into the private sector and into the public sector to identify the problem, and then we need to remediate that problem to solve it and be more responsive to that and monitor it 24/7 for any cyber potential threat.
Let me continue with you with another question. I have statistics here from the Federation of Small Businesses in UK, who reports that small business community suffers almost 10,000 attacks daily at an annual cost of £4.5 billion. Is there any such statistics for Kosovo available? And if yes, what is the extent of financial but also of the reputational damage?
Okay, numbers are always great, and they give us and visualize us to what we are missing. So currently, Kosovo in Western Balkan region is standing in the third place for cyber threat attacks. The first place is for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the second place is for Serbia. So basically, in Kosovo, we are having 71 ransomware attacks every month, and more than 13,000 email attacks, including phishing and email viruses on the private sector. And the top or most attacked industries in Kosovo are the financial sector, the telecom and the ISPs, the education and other businesses.
Thank you, Granit. You would like to add something?
Yes, and just to add to the topic, back in 2013, we did a research how the education impacts the security of web application. This is very good reference to our publication at that time. We checked 30 public institutions, their web pages in Kosovo, and checked the technology they've been involved for the development, the technology they're using, who did this, and their education background. And so we tried to get a correlation about the education and the cyber threats in these institutions. So to come to your question, one of the I think in order to prevent, then we need our new generation to get well educated about the cyber threats, about the technology, the threats that are there, in order to protect their digital assets.
Thank you, Blerim, for this valuable input. And ransomware was mentioned several times by Tony and now by you, Granit. And this touches upon also the ethical aspects of digitalization and cybersecurity. So, and according to recent statistics, more than half of all companies that experience a ransomware attack decide to pay the ransom, even though a third never see their data again. Xhavit, should companies pay ransomware?
Good question, difficult answer, of course. And so we know that it's like a general advice is not, we should not pay. You know, the companies or whoever is being attacked should not pay the ransom. But unfortunately, we have seen evolvement of cyber criminals, especially in ransomware since late 80s, then in 90s, then they moved in 2004, then 2016, and especially during the pandemics, it has shifted in different aspects. But even if you pay the ransomware, you will never be guaranteed that you will have all your data back or decrypted. And now they have moved even further. They will maybe decrypt you certain files, or so it's very complicated. But fortunately, there are companies. I just came back from DC when, of course, from the global perspective, at least from both the previous and current CISA directors, but also from Mandiant and national security advisors to President Biden. So ransomware is considered to be one of the biggest threats, and it will stay. Unfortunately, it's a conclusion that it will continue to be.
Thank you. Proper use of technology with right processes in place is or could be one of the tools to improve cybersecurity in general. Nowadays, the usage of cloud has significantly increased and is widespread. Blerim, is cloud computing making us more secure?
Well, we have in the same time increase of usage of technology, at the same time is a higher demand for using new technology, but at the same time cyber threats are increasing. So the cloud is currently what we are doing now. The cloud will stay here, and probably tendency is to go more in the cloud. Yes, every new technology exposes new threats, but this is something that we have to live with it, and we need to know it in order to use it better. So it doesn't, in my opinion, it brings new threats, but we need to understand it. But now every one of us, even in this room, and they are watching us online, they're using the cloud technologies because we want to share our data, and especially the pandemic has shown that the companies that has their services via cloud have been more successful, and this is going to be happen in the near future. So our services will be cloud-based because we would like to access them from anywhere, anytime, and not to be dependent from device and from location. So we need to know the threats coming from the clouds, but this is something that we cannot avoid, not using the cloud services.
Of course, changing from normal use of data in servers to cloud computing is also a critical cultural change for a company. So I'd like to ask Tony, if you're hearing us, experts say, and I quote, that helping to build cybersecurity knowledge base and training people is not enough. One needs to instill a cybersecurity culture in institutions, businesses, and organizations. What does it take to instill such a cybersecurity culture in an organization?
Well, so number one, I think is awareness, right? And with awareness comes education. I think a lot of folks sometimes, when you want to instill a culture of cybersecurity, it's understanding that you're protecting the data of not only your company, but your customers, which you should hold somewhat sacred, right? So the culture happens with education. It happens with ongoing training. I think a lot of folks will do training and they'll do it one time a year just to say that they've done it. Training has to happen all the time. It needs to be top of mind. And I think that's the #1 way to install a culture of cybersecurity within an organization. But if you obsess over your customers and you truly understand that that data you're holding is not your data, right? It's their data. I think that's where the culture begins. And that's really important to understand that you're defending that data. You're entrusted to hold it, and you should do everything you can to make sure the bad guys aren't getting to it.
Thank you, Tony. You also mentioned education, and I think this is actually critical for building and improving cybersecurity. Blerim, are Kosovo's educational institutions well prepared to respond to this market need?
Well, everybody in this room knows that cybersecurity or security in information or data has been not, let's say, the most important topic. When I started my PhD on security, the security was one of the topics at the end of every meeting. And unfortunately, this events on 2001, they changed everything, how we see and how we perceive the security. Suddenly, from one of the not important guys in the meeting, I become one of the most important. The security now is important feature. As Tony mentioned previously, you don't build a house without a good proper lock. And nowadays, you don't build your application without proper authentication, proper encryption, and so on. And I'm very proud to say that University of Prishtina offered the first course on data security back in 2006, 2005, when I started only one course. And now we have several courses starting and naming in different names like data security, information security, internet security, etc., labs, hands-on, etc. Even recently, I supervised 2 PhD students on data security, on blockchain technologies. So I think not only University of Prishtina, but the same is now replicated to other colleges in Kosovo as well. And I think the cybersecurity is very popular among young persons. So I think Kosovo is preparing toward this, and the new generation are aware that cybersecurity is and will be a very important topic. Just to share with you that Tony said that cybersecurity should be first, but in the European level, energy is the first issue and cybersecurity is the second one. So cybersecurity is here, it will stay, and it will be a companion to every product, every digital product that we build.
Thank you. Granit, would you like to add something?
So maybe I can add a feature on that and an advice for private sector. If you have been a victim of a ransomware now, do not turn the computer off, because in every reboot it restores the memory, so it's a memory-based attack. And the second advice is to call authorities, local authorities, because we do have the National Cybersecurity program in Kosovo Police. So basically, we need to do some penetration testing each year, every month or every week maybe, because we are in a critical situation here in Kosovo.
Thank you for this very valuable input. So if it happens that you're a victim of a ransomware attack, don't turn your computer off. Xhavit?
Just to add something that you all are aware, cyber hygiene is a very important step for everyone, no matter what industry you are. And something else that it is very important, I'm very much fan of Keith Alexander, the CEO and founder of IronNet, and he very much is about the collective defense, when he promotes very much into sharing information between those in this cybersecurity area, that they share as much as possible information about the threats that we all receive. And also something to pass also from the just recent Mandiant Cyber Defense Summit, it is that for the first time it was mentioned that cyber diplomacy. So then we have heard about diplomacy in different aspects, but just because of the threats and also the threat actors, and then regulations, of course. It is very important to build this like diplomatic relationship, but focused into how to together better respond to threats that come from cyber criminals, because we have seen lots of threat actors are not only cyber criminals, but also state actors as well. And another thing which is very important, and we hope to see even in the new strategy, it is PPP, public-private partnership, which is, again, related not only to businesses, but also with the education system. And we heard a little bit of that also in the Prime Minister's speech, especially about the education, but that is very, very important to see in the future.
Thank you very much, Xhavit. Maybe a last question for the round. We talked pretty much about threats, and it's good because this raises the awareness of the threats that come from the internet and from the digital transformation. But let's focus a bit also on the opportunities. Tony mentioned already data centers as an opportunity for Kosovo, also the specialization of Kosovo youth in cybersecurity. Do we have the financial resources and human resources for that? But please keep it very short.
Kosovo is recently establishing as a hub for digital services. In years, especially at our university, we had among many requests for young engineers, and knowing this, that this demand is increasing, I think we have any resources and we are performing good because the demand is increasing every year. Just this year, I think Valdeta is somewhere here, their company come to our faculty and their German representative said, we need 140 engineers. By God, we don't produce 140 engineers per year. We enroll 140 at the beginning, but not all of them are, let's say, finishing their studies in 1 year. So this high demand is here, and having this increase per year, I think we're performing good, and we're having these resources. Good.
Granit?
Yeah, maybe financial advice in cybersecurity. Maybe you can't invest $10,000 on penetration testing, but later after you have to pay $100,000 in a ransomware, or the cyber attack occurs, will give so much damage in a reputational and in a financial market of that company. So maybe you can invest the 10% of that and do not be threatened by the cyber attack.
Thank you. Xhavit, do we have the resources, the human resources, and can be specialized on data centers and especially on disaster recovery data centers?
As both Professor and Granit did say, so we have human capacity, but we need, of course, more training education. We need also more, I know the governments have continuously tried to support the training education, but especially now, we need to see also the government support this training education. And just to go to what Tony said about data centers and centers of excellence, and we can do more also in partnership with our partners, global partners, in the region here in Europe, but also in the United States.
Exactly. Thank you. Tony, may I ask you for your final remarks, please?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me. What a great conference that you guys are putting on. I think at the end of the day, the three gentlemen just hit the nail on the head. And I think one other important understanding, we talk about partnerships, it's also capital, right? It's very hard to do education, develop data centers, centers of excellence, companies that specialize in things without capital. And capital with every industry worldwide is really important. So aside from awareness and education, it's important to have those partnerships globally to bring more capital into the region, especially in a country like Kosovo that has a tremendous opportunity, tremendous vision. Now you need the capital to obviously put things in motion. And through the use of partnerships, I think that's probably the #1 message I would leave you with is I think there's a lot of companies globally that would be willing to partner in a country like yours with tremendous people, a youthful population, growth on the horizon. Those partnerships could bring in a lot of capital to help propel cybersecurity as a center of excellence in your great country. So again, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much, Tony. All the best to you. And I'd like to conclude with a few takeaways. Digital transformation is here to stay. It's a continued and unstoppable process. The downside of it are the threats to the cybersecurity. There are tools to improve cybersecurity, legal frameworks, for example, coupled with law enforcement, people, education, training, technology, and processes. So finally, cybersecurity is at the same time an opportunity for small economies, such as Kosovo particularly, to specialize in this area, for example, by training young people to become cybersecurity experts or by investing in data centers and data recovery centers. Let me conclude by thanking the guest speaker, Tony Pietrocola, the panelists, and you, the audience to this event, be it here or online. I would like to thank Austrian Development Cooperation for their support, COS ICT and STIC for the great cooperation. Thank you again for being here with us, and stay secure and stay healthy. Thank you.